time to call our meeting to order. If you would, please join us in the pledge of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We do have the consent agenda to address a little later in the meeting. Is there anything that we'd like to have removed from the consent agenda? Okay. Moving on to special activities. We do have a public hearing scheduled, so at this time I'd like to entertain a motion to recess the regular meeting and open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Meter.
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yay.
Mr. Wood.
Yes. This is a public hearing for modification request to villages of Winding Creek, boulevards at Winding Creek, Section 7, Stage 2, to remove condition 22A from Trustees Resolution 3632.
What a mouthful for our request, Steve. I'll tell you what we're up against, gentlemen. On the board we have, the requested area is in orange. This is lot of 5 points. This is the new Crooked Creek Drive on the north side of lot of 5 points. Say about 48 over here. Ultimately, the request is for these two lots to go from an open space designation to a buildable lot designation. In 2009, they were shown to exist adjacent to a parcel. The applicant, during that discussion, had a discussion with the property owner. The property owner came to the trustees and ultimately requested that properties not be adjacent. That became the condition for tonight's request to remove, so that this area, instead of being open space, becomes two buildable lots. The overall acreage remains the same. The overall lot count remains the same. The overall open space will remain the same. This is just a tweak along the way. In your packet, you received several additional items. When this came before the zoning commission, it showed the two lots and a path going down to the southern part of the open space. It was at that time we realized that that condition was not being met. That was revised. We had to also do a Warren County Regional Planning because of the tweaks to Stage 3 of the zoning commission are not equivalent to a subdivision modification. I had to go through a revised preliminary. At that time, they showed the two lots in anticipation, hoping that the trustee approval would occur, because there was discussion, if we don't have it at a regional planning level and we gain it at the trustee level, then we have to come back. So the zoning, actually the Warren County Regional Planning said, as a condition that can exist, but it has to ultimately, when we go to a final plat, receive zoning approval. So that's where we come into the next document for December 26, 2018, which it was recorded without those two lots. There was a designation for reserve lot 601 and 602, which was a paper street and a corner. Those two are points of discussion that David Oaks probably will have this evening about trading with adjoining property owners and having those absorbed at some future point. At the time the plat was recorded, so the perpetual ownership of reserve lots 601 and 602 respectively, so those two open space lots, by each adjoining property owners for the sole purpose of being maintained as open space for the PUD is contingent upon zoning approval by the Click Creek Township Board of Trustees. So ultimately that's a future request. That exists today, the request is specifically for these two lots to come into existence or not. Some of the future modifications of the trail network would be a Stage 3, and if truly there be a new designation for open space, because at this point in time all open space is quasi-publicly held by the HOA. There's not a designation for a privately held open space, so it's either open space or it's a private building lot. So those two are the only Legos that exist. This request would be for a future Lego to exist, so to speak, so those two lots could in essence be given to adjoining property owners. So, with that being said, when this was for Warren County Regional Planning, they approved the request. Before the zoning commission, they approved the request. So what you have before you this evening is a first reading specifying that with all the whereas, the last whereas on the first page talks about designation of April 22nd, 2019 with the document of sheet 3 of 6 to be used as a new preliminary. The lots identified as 618 and 618A and B. The request is a total acreage of .446 acres to remove the open space of lot 618 used for residential lots. Modification doesn't change the total residential count or minimum open space requirements on 3632 and 4325. So it would be only that specific modification. To answer questions at this time, the applicant does have a PowerPoint. You may have additional questions or answers.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff at this time? Gentlemen, if you would, please come forward and identify yourself.
Yes, good evening. My name is David Oak. I'm owner, developer of the subdivision, Winding Creek, and my address is 3601 Rigby Road, Miamisburg. And so I might go through this, and in doing so, may address some of the things that Jeff was speaking of. So again, the area that we're talking about is, let's see, north is to the right on the drawing. So 48 is on the north side of the, is on the top of the screen, and then Lido 5 Points. And the area that we're talking about is where the new entrance has came out onto Lido 5 Points. There on the left-hand side. So, there was this original item or condition 23A that required that lot 200 and 201 be eliminated, and so that was agreed to in the original stage 2. And then recently, when we built out that connection to Lido 5 Points, one thing is that kind of started this discussion is we accidentally put in the utility stubs for those 2 lots, so they've got sewer and water laterals coming off of the roadway there. And so I thought, since we had put in the utility stubs, I might go contact the adjacent property owner, his name is David Tripp, he's here this evening, and see if we could work something out in order that we could do a trade in order that those 2 lots could then be added back in through this process that we're here tonight on. So in doing so, I had talked to David about 3 things in which I was wondering if I did this, that then he would be accepting of this. And he'll speak more to it, I'm sure, this evening as well. But one was to add a landscape mound between his property and my property in their green space there. You can see the
It doesn't really, the pointer doesn't work on the TV. It's
okay.
towards the light.
Anyway, there's a separation between the lot that could be added and this is the original. So anyway, there's a separation between his property and these 2 lots being added. And we actually already have created a mound in that area, which was one of the things that I indicated to David that I would do, and landscape that mound. The second thing was the walking path was, if you can see, there's the new walking path that heads up towards the roundabout, but the walking path as is now approved in stage 2 actually comes down and goes between his lot and our lot, and then ties over to the new roadway. And I told him I'd work with Jeff and through this process to modify that so it actually does what's showing on the drawing now. And then thirdly is there's a old right-of-way that's shown to the west of his property, which he's been maintaining, and it's the one with the 2 little radiuses on Lido 5 Points that I would deed over to him. And in doing that, I looked at our overall green space in the subdivision, and we can provide, it's 145 plus or minus acres that needs to be provided, and according to the original stage 2 condition. Without that piece of ground, we can still provide the needed green space for the subdivision. So I thought it could be deeded over to him. A couple of things that I think, now Jeff may have an opinion, I may have an opinion, but I do think since I'm providing the green space elsewhere in the subdivision that I could, hopefully we could decide that that property could get deeded to someone else. It may, however, need to stay green may need to stay vacant or without any improvements on it.
Privately held green space.
Privately held green space, but not necessarily held by a HOA. It could be held by another property owner. Because the same thing sort of exists with the other adjacent property owner, which we're not here this evening. I was actually just kind of handled this one. But when I widened Lytle 5 Points, I needed right-of-way from a Mr. John Muttersball. John Miltonberger, yeah. John Miltonberger. Yeah. Yeah. A relative of yours, you know. John Miltonberger on the right-hand side, and in getting him to agree, he's already deeded the right-of-way. There's a little triangle, you can see it there in the corner of the property, where there's a creek going through there that separates sort of separates his property from my property. And since that was going to be over on his side of the property, I had agreed, and he wanted that little triangle to be deeded over to him, which again I was going to do, and I have plenty of green space to meet the requirement elsewhere. But I wasn't even here this evening for that. I just thought I could do that since I was going to provide the green space elsewhere in the subdivision. So I probably did enough talking, and that's probably let you ask any questions you might have.
If it's privately held green space, are there going to be any liabilities to the property owner that would be different than if the HOA owned it?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it's going to be, it's not like it's a lot, that's a buildable lot, which then has requirements to have HOA fees and things like that. This is green space that has really got no encumbrance except that it needs to stay without improvements.
Meaning if somebody accesses green space, they want to go take a hike through there and... Again, I'm not an attorney, but I would think that they would only have access on what I actually deed over as HOA, not if I deed this to Mr. Tritch, it's Mr. Tritch's property, and the residents would not have access to it because it's not part of the HOA, but that's my opinion as a layman.
Well, I'm not advising anybody here, but if hypothetically a question was asked about that, I'd say if they're trespassing, you would owe a duty to a trespasser, that's it. Which you don't shoot them within some gross parameters, if you will.
Right. They are in the township.
Exactly, right.
Mr. Oaks, you have mentioned a couple times that the green space other places.
Yes.
Kind of a general term. Can you be a little more specific if we're looking at the larger current plat?
Yeah, I've actually provided Jeff with a revised green space plan that would not include those two parcels, but okay. I don't have it in front of me this evening, but I don't know if you've seen it or...
I've not seen one that eliminated those two chunks, no.
Okay, I do believe we provided that, but I can provide that. We've got that calculation, and I could provide that to Jeff.
Could be helpful, just to...
I do understand that I can't deed these to two other property owners and then fall below my green space requirement. I do know that if it would require me not have to lose a lot somewhere else, I'd have to do that, or more lots if necessary. So.
See if there's anybody else in the audience that would like to have anything. I'm sure we have some questions too. Anybody else like this? Come on up.
No, David, I don't have anything to say. I'm David Rich, lived 1974 East Lytle 5 Points Road. I'm a parcel of land immediately to the west of the south entrance to the villages of Lion Creek. And I'm kind of where this all started years ago because of the original proposal to develop that land back into the golf course. And that strip of land immediately to the west of my parcel of land was something that came with question. And so I was originally here, and I was the one that pushed the issue to have that remain as undeveloped space. As David had mentioned, we've had multiple conversations, and I've maintained that piece of property for 20 years. So when the original proposal came up and he wanted to put these two homes here next to my property, that again was something that I stepped forward and said, well, you know, let's see where things go, because as we came forward and discussed in a previous meeting, it was determined that those would not stay there. David approached me to see about putting those two homes there, if we would be willing to consider being in agreement with him. And in doing so, he made a couple of offerings to us, three of which he did mention. One that he didn't was originally he had indicated that there was going to be sanitary lines coming down Crooked Creek, which is the street there, and there was a potential that we could, he would assist us with tying into that, thereby eliminating our need for sanitary septic system. In recent discussions, a couple of different visits, he indicated that that wasn't something that he was able to provide for us. So everything somewhat reverted back to the movement, relocation of the walking path, and the mound that would screen us from the homes that would be next to us. Then came the discussion about the piece of property that is in question, and the one thing that I indicated was I really didn't have that much of an issue as far as the homes being there. We've enjoyed the rural environment for many years, and of course we hate to give that up, but if you don't own the property, you can't do anything with it. We realized the homes were going to be getting closer to us, and as we started seeing the development come in, these two additional pieces were something that something we might be able to live with. It came back to that strip of land to the west of us, and during discussions with David, each time I've indicated that the only way that we would be willing to consider that is if we get complete free title to that land, that it has no ties in any way, shape, or form to the HOA, that it's completely clear of it, nobody can walk on it, it is our property. We are not going to somewhere down the road see, hey, you've got an HOA assessment that you haven't paid, or some other restriction that the HOA may put in place. So we wanted it to be completely clear and free of any connection. It is currently listed as a reserve lot, and where the two properties are that he wants to build, that is part of the reserve lot that is all part of that field behind the properties. And then that strip of land is also part of that reserve lot. So again, our concern is that if this is going to happen, and we wouldn't have any big issue with it, before approval is made to move forward, we need to have documentation. We have to have a legal document saying that it will be deeded over to us. It is 100% clear of any ties to the HOA or the development itself. Any questions?
If I was going to accept that land in your shoes, I would want it to be exactly the same way, free, clear, and have something on it. Absolutely. Makes perfect sense.
And I don't plan on shooting any trespassers.
Good.
Well, unless they're four-legged creatures in the barn.
Yeah, I get nervous.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
So, let me ask, have we checked at all, and maybe David has already checked with his attorney, can you provide a document that says that is out of it and he is the sole owner, how the HOA is the sole owner?
Yeah, so right now, we still control the HOA just until we get the whole development out. So I thought what would be, I have an enlisted attorney, I did ask his opinion, and that's what I was kind of given tonight. But I could get an attorney to write up a legal document as a representative of the HOA indicating that release that would then be documented with the township and with the property owner and all of those things. So I think that would be sufficient.
I think it'd be appropriate.
I do too.
Definitely,
Well, as I alluded to before, the way in which the resolution is set up, it's either open space, it's controlled by the HOA, or it's buildable lot. The two lots that we're talking about have been recorded as reserve lots, which are open space lots, through the last planning process. So they exist out there with the anticipation they're going to be open space.
Right.
Without this body saying that this option is an option, in the sense of private open space can exist in the subdivision, it's not one, it's the other. I don't know how to proceed. It's just,
All right.
it's either going to be open space.
Okay, let me
or-
give you a scenario then. Okay, if we said, okay, we want those two lots to become buildable lots.
Okay.
And to change the current plan and change those over to buildable lots, then he's gonna have to come, will this, what he's asking for today, will this accomplish that? I don't think it will.
He wants to have the two 70-foot buildable lots on Crooked Creek, which is the request. He'd then come back for a stage 3.
Stage
And
3.
after the stage 3, then it would come final plat
Okay.
and could exist as sellable lots.
With that, in the same vein, could we also say if he provides, when he provides the documentation saying that is free and clear, then we could pass a resolution to allow those two lots, or allow that property to become two lots, and allow the other piece of property formerly part of the open space to become a piece of property that was privately held and no longer open space and tied to the HOA.
The way in which, and again, this is our law director, so he can tell me if I'm incorrect or not. The way in which I've read the resolution, it's going to have to be a modification to that resolution that gives additional authority. And the way in which the PUD is set up, underneath the current resolution, is that you have to do a petition drive when you do not control everything to allow everyone to say, this is a change that we want to see happen. So,
you say, what's a petition drive?
petition drive exists for all, basically you take the entire subdivision lots that are owned by the developer, those get subtracted and everything gets divided by 2, and you have to have a majority of lot owners sign that they want this section of the resolution to be modified. So it truly comes back to a stage 2 modification. It's a major modification instead of a minor modification. Even though what we're talking about is less than an acre probably combined of all 4 chunks together, because it's changing what was approved, it needs to go back through that process. So I'm not sure how to get there without going back through the stage 2 process, which he's currently in for just those 2 lots.
So I'm not convinced that the stage 2 was that specific, that I couldn't do this, because I really believe the stage 2 was mostly saying you needed 145, it's something, but you needed 145 acres of green space. And we've been moving our green space around all the way through this, tweaking it here and here as we've done this whole thing. So if those 2 pieces were deeded to somebody else, in fact, like I said, that triangle down there, I was going to deed that to Miltonberger because, and then work with, and still show Jeff that I was going to, I don't know what Jeff could do to me if I deeded that, if I deeded that to Miltonberger, and not to the HOA.
You still have your 145.
Yeah, if I still have my 100. And then that is part of the HOA because I don't think I have to go back through, as long as I just keep the 145 acres of green space throughout the subdivision.
I mean, ultimately, at the final plat of the final section of the subdivision, there'll be an accounting of where's all the acreage. This is road right-of-way, this is open space,
Yes.
this is buildable lots. We're going to be, for these 2 lots, if they're not accounted for through process of saying these 2 lots can then fit into this matrix, I don't know how to account for them. So we won't be able to finalize the final plat because we can't meet that minimum expectation of where all the land goes.
And so you're saying that you'd have to go back and get that modified with all the votes?
Yeah, ultimately, the majority of the residents need to say that this is something that they're in favor of to let them come into the stage 2 process, which is currently in for modification, go to the zoning commission, ultimately come here. So I know it's a lot of bureaucracy, and believe me, I'm not trying to put more on than what I think is required by the resolution for guidance. And
So in that scenario, though, if we get to the final plat, and he knows he's gonna lose a lot at the end for that development, how are we not satisfying the
well,
spirit of the resolution?
we will have roughly a half acre
Right.
of unaccounted for land. But it didn't become open space, it didn't become a buildable lot, and it didn't become road right-of-way. It's just sitting out there that went into private ownership, that the original PUD did not anticipate open space going to private ownership for that acreage having a different classification. That's
And you're saying you couldn't
technicality.
modify that original PUD and just, say, 0.4 acres that will be deeded to a private individual?
So,
Go-
so resolution 3632 talks about, the problem I have is section 15 talks about a homeowners association shall be created to own and maintain all common open space. So that creates the problem, I think, that Mr. Palmer is articulating, creates a problem too, as to how is that defined. I guess, thinking on the fly here right now, is that, you know, if you say they could own all but point whatever that is, and you would modify that, that might take care of that too, as long as you meet the other requirements of the resolution.
Would a larger number still be the qualifier? If it's 145.23, whatever that is?
On that particular calculation, I think if I understand your question, the issue I'm having is the fact that it says the homeowner association creates, own and maintains all common open space. So either you have to define this as not common open space, or you have to make sure you have the acreage.
Well, we feel pretty confident right now you would have the acreage.
Yeah.
And if it was deeded over, it's no longer common open space. Maybe that seems too simple, I'm sure that is.
Well, no, I think you're right on there.
Oh, but-
If we then had what's not meeting the former is this, I think we're there. Because every time that there's a change, we talked about, things have been tweaked since day one. There's always been a tweaking occur, there's always been, and every time a tweaking occurs, there's a requirement that at a minimum, you know, a drawing is updated. In this drawing, we have 55-foot lots, 70-foot lots, 90-foot lots, retail area, open space, stormwater management. White is road right-of-way. There's an open space equivalency of this, that says this is where all my open space is. That would get modified to show this is another area, just as when we have a note talking about the road right-of-way, which has landscape in it, and that's part of one of the sub-areas. You know, it's a designation so that we know, all right, when we add it all together, this is where it all went. It's truly, that's as
Yeah,
simple as it is.
I guess the thing is, I don't think it's maybe that what Jeff's saying is doesn't specifically say anything about me deeding it to other individuals as long as I keep the 145 acres, and I just don't know if that's really something that is not allowed by the, I think it could be not allowed for any building area, but not allowed for, I don't know why it wouldn't be allowed to be deeded to someone else as open space.
Well, I don't either off the top of my head, but
Yeah,
I'll take it where we're.
That was the original.
So
There
here,
were some modifications that occurred, but that's been a rolling, this has been the new release also.
so section 24B talks about open space being depicted as the plat from October 13, 2009. Mr. Palmer says that's been a rolling kind of change. Is that
Yeah.
right, Mr. Oaks?
Yeah.
And so the overall open space shall never fall below 142.5.
Yeah.
Okay, and that wouldn't be impacted by this?
No.
Okay.
So we have modified that open space in the past.
Oh, it's placements.
Like, right, okay.
So there's been tweakings that have occurred, yes.
Place is not number of acreage.
Just
Correct.
place.
Yeah.
It's not been deeded over, it's not been like showing to be deeded over to someone else. It's just been tweaked,
Moved it.
move it around
Yeah.
within the buildable lot versus the open space area.
Yes, as it became final. So the preliminary was the big dream and number going section by section.
So to use a dumb analogy, it's the same quilt, it's just that the patches get moved. It's the same quilt.
Yeah.
Well, then I think, what I think might be possible is that, bear with me, let me look at the.
By the way, anybody else have any comments? I see some folks that have not typically here. You're here about this. If you have some comments you want to speak to, please come on up and give us your name. Yes, sir, come on up.
I have a couple general questions.
Yeah, come on up, please.
Thank you. Mike Brumauer, 2300 East Lytle, 5 Points. I just had a couple general questions. The first, the cul-de-sac that comes out east of the intersection, the cul-de-sac I'm talking about.
Comes back out towards Lytle 5
Yeah.
Points?
Yeah, the one that you don't have homes on quite yet.
Yep.
They're moving.
Yep.
When this was all first proposed and everything, the whole development, that area, I believe, and I don't think I'm wrong, was kind of billed as being an internester area, that cul-de-sac. And I know at one time, Ryan Holmes was kind of anxious to get in there to build some empty nester type homes. And that was kind of billed that way at the very beginning. And I was just wondering, when somebody says empty nester type homes, you think of patio homes or brick ranches. And, as the development moves down that cul-de-sac now, there's these big, tall, two-story buildings, tall homes. And I was wondering, whatever happened, because it's coming right in between an area, and it's like living in the land of giants now with those big homes on tall pads. And I don't know why I was under the impression there were going to be more brick ranches on that cul-de-sac. Am I mistaken, or?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
You want me to come up there, or?
No, I was just curious.
Yeah, so.
What to expect?
What was proposed are just smaller lots.
Smaller lots.
Yeah, so those are like the 55-foot lots that go down that cul-de-sac.
Right.
But, yeah, there was an empty nester community in the subdivision that Beezer originally started, but that was then, really, that even got families in there after a while, because it just couldn't designate any
Maybe
one
I'm
area.
remembering something from 20 years ago instead of 15. I was just curious.
Sure.
I saw them coming down the road, and a couple of the other neighbors said, we thought they were supposed to be smaller homes, and now they're real tall ones.
Smaller lots, but.
So, I just thought I would ask.
Okay.
And also, I've talked to Brian Oakes in reference to a drainage problem I'm having on my property. I think you were even out there with Brian. It's been about a year and a half ago now. And I didn't want to bring it up in a meeting, but nothing's been done about that yet. And it would take, I think we agreed it would take somebody a half an hour and a bulldozer to take care of the drainage problem. And I just thought I'd bring that up since I saw you here.
Yeah, I don't know, they never did that?
No, I know sometimes you don't want to do it when it's real wet, but on one corner of my property, so it's always been a little wet, and now it's 10 times worse, because that retention pond is right by the corner, that corner, and where I had a small area of standing water, now it stands all up the whole side of my property. I was just wondering if we could address that.
Oh, yeah. We've got the equipment out there, we should be able to.
My apologies, I thought that had been done by now.
No, it'd be so easy to do, and I've noticed it now recently with all this rain. I mean, we get one big rain, I can't go back there where it used to be a...
We should coordinate it. Now is the time, hopefully July and August is when it'll be a little drier and we could actually form it properly then.
I keep seeing all the equipment over there, I'm like, please, just come over here and do this.
Yeah.
And I thought this was the time I had everybody's attention to bring it up.
My apologies. Give me
Oh,
a
no,
moment.
that's okay.
I'll get you taken care of.
Okay, I know. Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else have anything where the council's, yes, sir, please, we're still, working here.
And this is an issue that kind of relates to something what Mr. Crumauer had just mentioned, and again, it's something that David Oakes and I have been in discussion about, and that's returning our property back to the condition it was before all the road construction and stuff started. And that was, the the leveling of our land and such. I know right now, there's currently a ditch in front of the property, which was non-existent before. And then suddenly there was, apparently the initial plan was approved that there would be a ditch put there to collect roadway water. And we were under the understanding it would be returned to that same condition of level ground. David's been working with us to get pipe put in place and resolve that. So I'm not sure exactly what stage that is as far as that being resolved. But I know that's something that he's working on, I believe, with the county engineer.
David, you want to address that?
Yeah, so, David, originally on his piece of ground, he kind of just brought in his own material, in the road right away. I didn't need right away from David to do the widening in front of his property, because he's part of that subdivision, and they had deeded enough right of way to do the work. However, he filled in the ditch in front of his home for drainage purposes. He thought that was going to be a better situation. And when I did the design on the widened road, I did the standard county design and put in the ditch section. So I was going to enclose the ditch for him. We've actually have the pipe on site, but I got to get Neil Tunison's okay to do that. But I think he'll give me the okay to do it. It's just something that I do. It actually should be better. The ditch is probably better than what he had, because he didn't even have a ditch in front of his property. But the pipe he didn't have a pipe in front of his property either, but the pipe, I think, will be able to carry any water that might come from upstream further to the west.
So I don't know if we still have public hearing comments, but,
No, well, if anybody else have anything right now, we'll go back, and we'll come back to it before we close.
so what it sounds like, because I know this is only on first reading, so nothing's being passed tonight anyway, you're not voting on it, but I think.
Well, we could.
Yeah, you'd have to waive the second reading if you wanted to, correct. But, I think what you would do is just, because it sounds like Mr. Oaks was agreeing to it anyway, to deed the lots, free and clear of any other encumbrances, other than it remain green, open space. And then that takes care of everybody, and that takes care of the condition. And Jeff and I have looked at this, and I think we could approve that. There's a specific major modification provision of the PUD, and I don't think that would qualify as a major, so you guys could do that for the bench here. But you would add that to the resolution of the condition of your approval, if that's what you're.
Add it for.
Yeah. And then if it doesn't occur, then you don't approve the stage 3.
Right. So you're going to be modifying the resolution?
Well, I don't know what they're doing yet.
Potentially,
We're on the fly.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Some more discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. And anybody else? Yes, sir.
Just regards to a statement that he just made that strip of land would have to remain open space. That is part of what I was referring to when I indicated that I wanted to be free and clear of anything that was Villages of Winding Creek. So I truly would like that completely removed, so that if for whatever reason I would want to put a shed there or whatever, that it would then be still 100% my decision what I would opt to move forward with.
And that's a problem, because that changes the open space requirement. So that cannot, if we say it's open space, it's open space. It's not, because now you have to change it, and now you go back to that is a major modification that would require all that to go back to petitions, because that would change in the amount or location of different land uses. So if that's what is going on, which it sounds to me like, there ought to be discussion here before this board comes back and tries to resolve what is essentially this dispute between these two. At least what I'm hearing. Because what I'm hearing is there's not agreement here, and you're going to post it.
It has to stay as open space.
It has to stay as open space,
or
or you have to go back to the major modification, because this is a, quote, change in the amount or location of a different land use.
Even
It
though
goes from open
So it's not under the umbrella of his ownership anymore?
Well, if
If it were deeded away from it.
but you're changing and you're making it a different land use.
But there have been several incidents where open space was taken from over here in this development.
Yeah.
And moved over here.
That's true.
Isn't this, so that place that moved from was eliminated as open space and became a private building lot for the person that bought that lot.
Yeah,
Or
but
private, yeah.
didn't you go through the major process to do that?
Through the stage 3, so the minor modification.
Okay.
Because he's adding it to his current residence. I mean, this is a detached piece of property.
But that's,
It's still
for my,
designated open space.
I understand that under the HOA, but once it's in his possession, it wouldn't be designated that way.
Yeah, I know, but at least the problem, and maybe I'm missing it, but the problem is it's right now designated as a use of open space, and it's not gonna be open space after Mr. Trish puts whatever he wants to on his property. That's the problem that I'm having, unless somebody can.
Well, in the other situations where he took open space, maybe I'm missing something too. Well, he took open space and made them lots. So that's no longer open space. And somebody that was deeded over to a property owner and they built a house on it.
yeah, the PUD expected to have open space or buildable lots. What I'm hearing is that we want to have a third option, which is land that can go to private individuals to either be used as open space or be used and replatted with their land, or just used in a different manner.
So because it's not going to go from open space to a buildable lot, that is the tie-up here, isn't it?
Yeah, and if truly the request is for it to be removed from the PUD, if that's the end result, that it is truly severed from the PUD, you know, that's a change of the PUD boundaries, that's a stage 2 modification for sure.
Another point.
So, you know, the way in which we're labeling at this point is that it's staying as open space, and we're saying it's still open space, but it's gonna be under new designation that can be theoretically pushed into a minor modification. However, if the intent is to use it differently, or to remove it from the PUD, that's this process through another application.
I agree with these guys. I think that right-of-way there has got a PUD zoning, and he's got some residential zone on his property. So he would have to actually, to consolidate that lot, that piece into his, he'd have to go through some type of a rezoning process, which, because it's PUD, he'd have to go through a PUD rezoning process, and so it is a big deal if he wants to do anything but keep it
Even though
open
David
space.
could deed it over to him, if he wanted to build something on it, he'd have to go through the PUD process.
Because it's part of the HOA.
Because of-
Well,
It's not part of the HOA, but it's part of the PUD.
Yeah, that was part, yeah.
yeah, but the PUD, I don't mean to belabor this, but the PUD, at this point in time, the agent for that is David Oaks. So you are the agent for the PUD regardless of who owns segments of the PUD. So if you want it to be removed, you're gonna have to do the application. The individual doesn't have the ability to remove himself from the PUD. Well, which I'm looking at, because you're the agent for the PUD.
I think I'm the agent for the property ownership, which just so happens to be the PUD. When I deed that over to him, he becomes the new agent for that PUD.
No, he's his own property owner, but he's not the agent for the PUD. You remain the agent for the PUD from the stage 2 designation. That's what gave you the ability to be the spokesperson. So I think we may have a longer discussion about that, but that's where we're going.
The problem is, based on, it can't be a minor modification if you're simply, if he's gonna do, and what I heard from Mr. Trish, that he wants to do whatever he wants to do with this, with
Right.
what will become his
I
property.
don't blame him.
I'm not value judging, I'm just saying, how do you get from point A to point B? And point A to point B, at least as I'm interpreting, Mr. Oaks sees it the same way too, is that has to be a major PUD modification, which goes back through the petition process.
I agree with that. So sorry to bring this, that we're not on the same page, because I just made David aware of that I felt like I can give him the piece of property, but it would have to remain as open space
Right.
under his ownership. And I told him that, so if we can't come to an agreement on that, then I understand the situation, so.
I don't know.
So my suggestion is that maybe you table it for 2 weeks or however long, you can talk to Mr. Trish, and you guys can either work it out or not, because you can always just, you
Yep.
can always withdraw this if you don't get where you want to get.
Yep, yep.
Did have one more question, yes, sir?
Well, I don't know if it's helpful or not. I had discussed a similar situation with David Oakes about a strip of property next to my land. And this is going back several years now. And I talked to Mr. Palmer, and he told me to come to the meetings and try to get it deemed a minor change, minor modification versus a major modification. And I did that. And I came to the meetings and we got that changed, and I believe it's in writing now. That was for my desires, but of course that has not gone any farther to date at this point. And of course, it was a strip of land I would never build on, but I did want to use it for private use, kind of an access driveway to my property. So I don't know if that helps out. This seems like a very similar situation, with the exception of the fact that he might want to build a shed on there someday.
So I was gonna do the same thing with Mike. It's a narrow strip of ground. It's how Mike Clark accesses the property for farming purposes. And what I was going to make sure is that I've told Mike, because he's cooperated through the situation, that if we can provide all the green space, which I also think I can eliminate that piece of strip and still provide the green space, that I would do that at the end when I no longer needed that access to that property on the other side of the creek. And again, I don't know I know we've got this situation of adding 2 lots, but I don't know, I'm still thinking that I'm going to be conveying these pieces of property to Mike and Mr. Miltenberger. They'll have to live with the stipulations that it's still part of the PUD, but I still believe they own them. They got to keep them as green space, but they just won't be able to put any structures on them, so.
Well,
But he wants to maybe build a shed, and I want to use it as a driveway someday.
I'm with you.
well,
The reason I brought that up is because mine had already been come in and discussed and deemed and voted on as a secondary, or a minor modification. So I was just trying to say there's a little bit of precedence here, if that means it.
Yeah, the precedent occurred prior to the update to the current code. So that's where our rub comes.
And there's also the definition, is very clear on the use, and that's what gives me heartburn. Which is different, even forget the new code, it's different than the situation expressed back there anyway.
all right, well then, I think probably what we would do is, I'd say that you guys can get together and see if you guys can work that out. We can table this.
Yeah.
That will come out of well, I'll get to you before I close it.
Do you feel like if the one missing agreement is if he was willing to keep it as open space and take it as open space, that's then something that then could be a votable then?
It feels to me like that would be a minor modification, which
That would make it a minor modification,
Yes,
so.
and that would be part of the resolution.
So that's kind of where we stand.
That's how-
I do understand that that's kind of where this thing either goes forward or it doesn't, based
That's where I
upon-
see it, Mr. Oaks.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I was just curious,
If you would, if you have spoken, give us your name for the record, please. Thanks, thank you.
My name's Mike Coley. I live at 9644 Lindenbrook in the development. Yeah, I was just kind of curious. They're talking about deeding away some of the land, and if it dissolves as open space or remains as open space, but let's say it dissolves as open space, is the open space that's required for the PUD, is that based on total area, a percentage of total area, or is that just a number that needs to be held to the?
It's a percentage of the gross acreage of the original PUD. That's how that number came about.
Okay,
So
so
it's in excess of what was required of 25%, so 33%, I think, 33.74% of the acreage.
Okay. So if that was actually deeded away as no longer open space, they wouldn't actually have to recoup all of that land in open space, they'd have to recoup whatever the new percentage would be.
Well, you bring up a good point, is if the acreage goes away, there may be an update to the number. If the
I'm not-
acreage remains
I'm not
as it
looking
is,
for that.
what I'm hearing is that they're
Yeah.
willing to still maintain the homeowners association control the minimum that was required of them.
That's a good point,
That
sir,
is a
but
good point.
I don't, I would just stay with the original
Okay.
overall.
Well, I'm
but
just,
that's a good
I just
point.
had the
Yeah.
questions, how
No,
that's.
it's
That is.
an interesting point, yeah.
There was
That's
a
why I was
larger-
curious as
there
to where
was
he's
a
gonna take it.
larger-
Yeah, right. Assuming 2 other lots somewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any no further comments, we'll have entertain a motion to close the public hearing and reconvene the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yes. Okay, now we're back in the regular meeting. I'd like to entertain a motion to table this special activity and resolution 5176.
Mr. Wade, before,
Yes.
is 2 weeks, is that, or do you need more?
Yeah, let's do 2 weeks and
Okay.
we'll see.
Until our next meeting, which is...
22nd.
22nd.
At 9.
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
22nd at 9.
Second meeting runs in the morning.
Second at 9 in the morning.
So a motion to do as we just stated. So moved.
Second?
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Thanks for listening.
Things to think
Yeah.
about.
Thanks for listening to us. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, guys.
everyone, for coming through. Thanks, John.
No, you're good.
Did we have cards with it?
I knew you gave me one time. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'm in no hurry. I was just,
Getting to that edge, I'm just like, motion down there. I get it, but.
No, I get it. Okay.
Wait for that sentence to finish.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is the fiscal officer's report.
Yes, sir, I have a couple things for you. Today, we will get our second advance in next Monday on property taxes. That enables us to get the interest off that money and makes us about an extra $100 every single day we get that advance in. So it's well worth it. Thanks to the county for allowing us to do that.
Absolutely.
Very good. And as you're aware, we also have the investment income distribution for your action today. Again, if you look at some of those numbers, that's pretty substantial numbers there that the fire and police districts are taking advantage of to be able to get their own money back. So
That's great. Anything else before we
No,
act
no.
on this resolution?
that's it, sir.
As Russ indicated, we do have a resolution 5177 to approve the transfer of funds from the general fund into each investment, from the investment accounts to each department's accounts. Is there a motion to accept and approve 5177?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Now we have a spot on the agenda for public comment. Anybody have any public comment? Yes, sir. Come on up and state your name for us and your address, please. See my eyes still hot?
Yeah.
At 4 o'clock.
Just for your time there.
Yes,
My name
sir.
is Chris Meyer, this is my wife Lisa Meyer, and we live at 811 East Pekin Road. And we've been there for a little over 5 years now. And Clear Creek runs through our front yard, as well as another creek that cuts through Wackenberger. They meet in our front yard. And then they go underneath, Pekin, the bridge there. And we are having some major problems with that area when we get these downpours. Used to be, and I've got a bridge that goes over top of, Clear Creek to get to my house. So we've got a driveway, we have to drive over Clear Creek. And, there's been times where we've had to wait for the creek to go down to get to our house. There's been times where we've been stuck in the house and can't get out. I've had to call off work. It's usually about 2 hours and it's back down. But it's a raging bull and it's going. It's unbelievable. I've got pictures here. I'll print it out on my phone, hoping you guys maybe can find time to look at them. It'll go up about 11 feet from where the normal level is when it's like right now. Put the tape measure, it gets up over my drive over bridge, and then it'll keep coming about another 2.5 feet, so total about 11 feet. Then it starts coming out this way. From my bridge to the house, it's 200 feet. It'll come 150 feet to my house. It's a huge area, and you can hear it from the house. And then I've got the creek that comes along the side of the house. On the side of the house, comes through Weissenberger, and it's eroding my land. Well, it's not causing me, it's staying in the creek. But I had a bunch of trees cut down when I first moved in there, and I kind of had them about 4 or 5 foot along the bank. And now they're about a foot from falling in, so I'm going to have to actually roll those back. So I'm losing about a foot a year on the erosion on the side of my house. So I've got a creek coming in the side, creek going through the front of the house, front of the yard, and now the embankments to the creek are all getting washed out. The 4 embankments that the creek flows into, the huge embankments are all getting washed out underneath and on the backside. And I've got pads leading to the bridge, and it's getting washed out underneath the pads. And the pads are falling out. One of them on one side is about 6 inches, the other side about 4 inches. So now we've got to lay gravel down there just to get up over that hump. And then, of course, the gravel gets washed away when we have another one that floods. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. Now, I'm not really sure what to do. I've had different people out there. Scott's been out there. Matt Clark's been out there. I've had people from the county out there. I've had Don Norman out there. I've had Lee Lewis out there, engineer from Warren County. And everybody knows that I've got a problem, but nobody knows what to do. I got my own personal opinions. I'm probably totally wrong. I think that bridge needs to be widened. It goes underneath Pekin. I think that would take all that water, or a lot of it. But in the meantime, what I'm here for today is I don't even know what I'm asking you guys for right now, but I just know I have a problem. And if we ever needed help, if one of us needed an ambulance, they can't get that. It's one of these. I'm not just talking 1 or 2 times. This has happened probably over a dozen times since we've been there, and most of them, well, I think the first 2 years it happened maybe once or twice. Now the last couple of years, 3 or 4 times. This last time was unbelievable. And can you guys take a look at these? Yeah. I don't know what I'm even asking for, but any help, any ideas, any help I could get from you guys would be greatly appreciated. And I know we got this certain amount of distance from the road, Pekin Road, but it actually goes under Pekin after they meet up. I gave you a couple of pictures there in the beginning to show you the distance from my house to the creek. And as you go, you can see what's doing. It's unbelievable. You look at it, and you can't even believe what you're seeing. It's crazy.
Did Scott Dean, and I'm asking both of you, did the county engineer give you any, okay, this is something that could be done to help us? Did they do anything like that at all?
Lee Lewis, county engineer, he basically told me that with the erosion problem that I have, that he didn't have any problem with me getting in there and doing what I maybe could do to help with the erosion.
Right.
But it's a way bigger problem than that, it's just the sheer amount of water, like that, my drive over bridge,
I can say that.
if I could spend, if I had the money on, to build a $40,000 bridge, to redo my whole bridge, I'd still have the problem, the way I'm looking at it, because it's just that sheer amount of water, it's still gonna flow. I mean, it is unbelievable, and if anybody would like to come out there and take a look, we're having one of these, you can, feel free, you won't believe it.
You know, I think probably at the, sorry, just wait a minute, this first one on this. I think at best we can do probably is to try to pin the county engineer down and say, this is a plan, here's a plan what could be done. And then, we're not really allowed to go on public property and spend money. So, we're not gonna be able to go in there and fix that for you. However, sometimes, yes, sometimes there are ways that the county engineer can get money to do that. So maybe we can put a team, if we could get them to put a plan together.
Well, you spoke to the EPA, you said you could clear out section of 500 feet and straighten it
Right,
out.
I spoke with, Matt Lamore of the EPA, and she got the paperwork here. Basically, it's like 90-some page email, but basically what it amounts to, and we talked for about 15 minutes, yeah, 500 feet, 500 linear feet, one that didn't impact greater than that I wouldn't have to get the Corps of Engineers involved or something, but if it was more than that, I'd have to get them involved. Everybody I've talked to, it seems like I go in circles. Nobody wants to put anything in writing, and I'm right back to where I was again.
We've had these issues in other areas, and it is, trust me, it's a big circle.
Yep.
We got a hard time getting anything done. But,
We tried to get FEMA involved at one point with one of our situations, and, I mean, had a house that was below the line of the creek.
Right.
and so if you did less than 500 feet, then you don't have to get the Corps of Engineers involved.
That's what he wrote here.
What would be wrong with getting them involved? That is, this is.
Right,
I mean, what's
right.
wrong with it? I don't know.
That's one of the very last pictures, Pekin Road Bridge, you can see how high it's getting.
I was thinking maybe we could put that on and have him make some phone calls. Our township administrator's on vacation, but let's try to get him to, can we keep these pictures?
Sure,
alive?
yeah.
We won't destroy them or anything.
Yep.
And we'll make sure we've got your, did you get his name and address?
Kristen, Lisa Meyer, 811 East 8, what's it, 811?
Yeah, 11 East Pekin.
Pekin Road, right there. Got it.
We'll get, what's your phone number?
Yeah, 937-397-2059.
Okay. We'll get him to look into it and.
Matt, you said?
Yeah, Matt
Okay.
Clark.
Yeah, he's been out there.
So he's visited,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, he's seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what he's done for us in the past is gotten an audience with the Pope, if you will.
Right.
And sitting down one-on-one with Neil and/or one of his head guys and said, listen, these are case-by-case bases, but we've all experienced, I mean, I've got a bull run goes 25 feet behind my house.
Oh, okay.
And it has washed out into the field behind me because I'm on the higher ground, but it'll raise 6 feet in an hour. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I know, I can visualize what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's the challenge, obviously, that's there, along with the washout portion is, it's coming together and it's making another turn there where Pekin hits, and it's going under Pekin, and
Yeah.
those are all things that they need to look at.
Thank you.
Well, let's get Matt to take another step, and, I know he's seen it, but we'll push him and get
Okay.
him moving forward and try to see if he can help you with the plan.
Okay.
And again, maybe you have to get the Corps of Engineers in, because this is a monumental.
Well, EPA has been more active, it seems. Is that a fair point, Mr. Palmer?
That's correct.
They have had some other drainage issues that we've dealt with in our newer development that they've gotten involved in based on how things have been done, so. It's good that you've contacted them, because they're kind of bulldogs in that, in that vein.
Yeah, and I don't mind, spending a little bit of my money, I know it's my property, but it's just like, I could throw a bunch of money at this thing.
Yeah, no,
What I
yeah,
have,
yeah.
I'm not any further ahead,
Right.
because it's just a sheer amount of water.
Yeah.
And it's bottling up right there. I think it's taking a 90 when it meets up with the other creek, and it takes a 90 and goes under Pekin. And I'm thinking, that bridge right there was about twice its size. But that last picture I'm showing you, you can see how high it gets. And actually runs into the Pekin Road Bridge for bracing across it. So if it was wider, I'm not an engineer, but I'm just thinking, it seems to me like it would, of course, now down the creek, somebody else is gonna get a lot more water. But I don't know.
The law of unintended consequences.
Yeah, or maybe catch it up before it gets to me, because they're doing all that building now. That land right next to me, they've built a house. And, all that building's going on, it's just rushing, to our property.
Changes the drainage pattern.
And then I'm spending the day, you see the bridge, when it gets all hung up in the branches? If I'm at work, and I don't catch it as it's going back down, get down there and try to unjam it, and let it go on, then I'm out there the whole day cleaning that out. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I'll spend a whole day out there cleaning, pulling branches out, big huge limbs.
Well, let's see if we can get Matt to approach us and see if we can get some ideas or something.
Any help at all, I greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Okay. Moving on to new business under administration. We have a recommendation. Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
As I mentioned before, my name's Mike Colon, 9634 Lindenbrook. For one, I just wanted to attend the meeting here. I moved down from Harrison Township about 4 years ago. I was very active in the community up there, my wife and I. She had a root canal today, so she's kind of taking it easy right now. But one of the things that's kind of struck me, I love townships. I wouldn't live in quite honestly, I wouldn't live in a city. I love the townships. They're much better managed and much easier to work with and all of those things. But, and I do appreciate the utility co-op. It looks like it's going to be a good thing for us. The latest pricing they just came back with was pretty impressive, to be quite honest. Looks done a good job. But the one area that I'm wondering about, and that is the trash pickup here. Up in Harrison Township, that was run by the county, of course, it was contracted through the county. And I was paying about 30–40% less in Harrison Township than I'm paying down here. And I was just curious if you've looked at that before, or, as far as having township handle the trash, or not. I'm just...
But a few years ago, we did look at trying to get a single provider to come in and get the providers that are operating the township to bid on taking over all of the township business rather than being split up between 2 or 3 different operators. That did not work. We had public hearings and almost got lynched. Nobody wants to give up their own trash haul. So, for that reason, at this time, we probably would not consider that again. We really did try. The county tried that too.
It's surprising because in Harrison Township, everything's handled for us. We have great heavy trash pickup. Anytime we need it, we just let them know. It's like every second Thursday or something like that. And like I say, the rates were so much less, and I didn't have to hassle with the trash people. I mean, it surprised me because I guess maybe these people have never had it the other way around. And because it was so much easier. I didn't have to worry if something got screwed up. I called the township. They said, okay. Half hour later, the trash truck came back out and picked up my trash because for whatever reason, they missed it that day. I lived I was the only house on my road,
Okay.
kind of off the road a little bit. Every once in a while, the driver would miss us or whatever.
You might think if you're not having good luck. Now, I have a room.
Yes, sir, I have also.
They do a great job for me, but now if they miss me, I'll call them and they'll come out.
Oh, yeah, and I haven't had a problem so much in that direction, but just like with heavy trash pickup, well, that's an extra service for us. When Harrison Township, that was included. I mean, so that was that was the one thing here that I noticed that I thought, I don't know what the deal is, but you kind of explained that.
We tried that.
Well, and you said that it's part of the county process, if I'm not mistaken, that.
No, that's Harrison Township, right?
I understand that, but I think they negotiate along with, there's a consortium up there, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not real sure if that's.
And that might be
That
part
might
of
be
the,
how it works, I don't.
might be part of the fees structure, and I'm curious as to the road mileage is another issue, because we've got 90-some miles of roads.
Well, Harrison Township is the second largest roadage in Montgomery
County, right.
Yeah, we actually do 90 miles of road in Harrison Township. And one of the things that was always, probably the thing I thought about the most with Harrison Township was they would plow every single street in that township. It was so funny because when you would leave Harrison Township and you would go north or you would go south, or whatever direction you went, you knew immediately when you left Harrison Township. But like I say, I wanted to run that by you folks and just.
Probably not something we'll do is try to consolidate that in my opinion. These guys, they differ from.
No, I
would.
I wasn't on the board when you did that, but I would have pushed back because I like the option of Thursday or Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I could never do Thursday. My kids and I we have to, obviously, our trash pickup's a little different, 300 yards off the road, but I've experienced some of the similar frustrations as you have as far as the heavy item pickup.
Yeah, I think things like always changing with the surcharges on it each month, kind of bounce around. They never seem to go down, they always seem to go up, but.
No,
But anyway, so I wanted to run that by and just, like I say, introduce myself. I try to make it to some of the meetings. I made it to, in fact, what's funny about this, the guy who was talking about when he did the last one, here, that was the last time I was here for it. It was on that. I try to keep up with what's going on there
we do upload our meetings on YouTube as well if you don't get a chance to make it,
Oh,
you
okay.
can watch it.
Yeah. Well, thank you much, and I'll let you get along with your meeting.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay, administration, we have a recommendation to enter into a streetlight agreement with Miami Valley Lighting and delegating the authority to execute the agreement to the township administrator. This is a motion to delegate it to establish this streetlight authority and give Matt the authority to sign. So moved.
Second?
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. We have a recommendation to support the city of Springborough's annual fireworks display by making a $5,000 contribution to the program, something that we've done for the past several years. Is there a motion to send the city of Springboro this fireworks?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Nay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. And then we have the fire district, we have a resolution 5178, resolution declaring personal property as surplus and approving an internet auction, direct sale, demolition, so on and so forth. Steve, anything special you want to?
An old stove and oven that no use to us anymore, specific fix and to replace, and then an old AV cart that didn't sell and got the permission to dispose of the property.
Any questions about 5178 for the chief?
Are you just gonna junk it, or?
Just a motion to approve 5178.
Second?
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. And then the road department, we have a recommendation to make a conditional offer of probationary full-time employment to Colby Bloom effective July 8th at the rate of $22 an hour.
I can answer any questions if you have them, sir.
I talked to you briefly about it. He came from the county, and then he has
the
some
last-
expertise that you were looking for.
Yes, the last 2 years, he was a mechanic for Warren County, came very highly recommended from several people at the county, called and they realized we were doing an interviewing process with him and spoke very highly of him. He was a mechanic there for 2 years, plowed snow for the last 2 years, and before that, he maintained all the grounds at the atrium, did all the maintenance and everything down there by himself, 30-plus acres, and, I did not do his interview, Matt and Mindy did, and spoke very highly of his interviews.
Okay, excellent. Well, is there a motion to offer this probationary full-time employment to Colby Bloom?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. Anything else, Scott?
I can ask a question at staff updates if you want, we can take it for the end.
Steve, I didn't ask you, did you have anything else? Sorry. Still thinking about trash.
Getting wasteful.
Moving on to the planning and zoning department, we have resolution 5179. It's a resolution determining that maintenance of following properties constitutes a nuisance of vegetation and so on, and we have a list of 8 there, all but one on the same road.
Yeah, it's all former property. Lucy Lane is part of Savannah Farms. The other chunk was the second parcelization of the original farm. So it's all under the control of either Design Homes or some private individuals who recently bought the property. So we have Friendly Acres, which is on Harlem Road. I've had several different calls that they're starting to receive weeds from these properties, so we're asking you to come.
Time to make a move.
Jeff, has there been any comment or happening on the that mound across from Hidden Valley Orchard?
There's not been any current discussion. I can look at that for the next meeting, but.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, I know that when I talked with the individual last year, when we put it through, they were truly trying to make it their wildlife area, and I explained to them that they need to actively do that. You just don't let it revert to nature in a subdivision. If you're gonna make it into a wildlife preserve, you have to actively do that. So, I'll have another discussion.
You know the section I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
Yeah, I'll make
That's a
it.
great spot, I bet it's wildlife. Tell my wife, it's great.
Okay, is there a motion to approve 5179?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah. And we have resolution 5080, a resolution determining maintenance of 367 Patton Drive, constitutes a nuisance.
This is both a vegetation nuisance, and we have 2 vehicles that have not moved on the property for quite some time. On the last nuisance that we put them through about a month ago, the certified was returned back to us unclaimed, but the grass was cut. So I thought we were working in the right direction, but unfortunately, I think the neighbors cut the grass based upon the lack of cutting now and the phone calls that I'm receiving. So I'd like to go through the normal process we did earlier this year with other properties who had double nuisance, give them the notice to abate and go forward.
Sounds good to me. Is there a motion to approve 5180?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. And anything else, Jeff?
Nothing.
Okay. And we have the police department, and the advisory memo, the police department has certified and being compliant with the Ohio Collaborative Community Police Advisory Board standards for advice rate for policing and investigation of employee trespass.
The Ohio Collaborative started several years back. It's kind of a mini-me of the CALEA national process that we get accredited by. It's a collaborative that we can take part in or not take part in. However, when the state put it out, they attached some of their grant stuff to participating in it. So Our national CALIA process already has these standards in it, so it's fairly easy to grab this and maintain the possibility of latching onto some grants when they do come open, since the state is attached to that. It's a yearly process now. CALIA is usually pretty comprehensive. This is usually 2 to 4 subjects they pick out every year and ask us to verify that we're in compliance. We received our, Sergeant Stacy and Corporal Bates did the work on that. We did receive a notice back that we're in compliance with the state, so it just keeps us eligible for anything that might come up in the future. Also provides us some professional accreditation by the state, that's just the national level, that we're participating in somebody overseeing the way we operate, and that the standards are pretty acceptable across the state and most of the police departments. So just a notification that we'll pass that. So.
I read this online the other day, I thought, okay, when is CALIA renewal coming up?
I think next year. They've moved that to a 4-year process now, which saves us a little bit of money. But I think it is due next year. I know the guys are working on it now. They've changed that a little too. Instead of sending a lot of stuff off, they allow us to email some stuff back and forth, and they don't. I don't think they're going to hear as long because we have to pay when they come in to inspect us. I don't think they're here as long. So there's a little bit of trail, and then they do it every 4 years now instead of every 3. So we don't have to come up with. We have a yearly fee to be in that, but it's not big money until every 4 years. So for the bigger money.
Anything else, Chief?
I just want to let the board know, in January we lost Officer Lee. I went to the sentencing this morning of the individual that killed him in the car accident. He was charged with aggravated vehicular assault. The maximum term of that was 11 years. The judge gave him 11 years. There were 2 side charges for violation of parole, because he was on parole issue, and then there's another violation where he was under suspension, and there was another attachment to that. Grade violation of community control, which gave another 2 years, so he received 13 years in prison this morning, and he'll be doing 13 years in prison. He'll have the right to appeal, but at this point, he's been sentenced to the maximum time the judge can give him. A little heartbreaking this morning, but at least there's some conclusion for now. So, yeah.
Lifetime suspension of license too.
Got a lifetime suspension of his license too, so he does get out. Yeah. Judge was pretty stern. The kid, he didn't break until they gave him the maximum sentence. He blurted out, "I didn't mean to do this. My life is over." And the judge said, "You'll be out when you're 45, Officer Lee's dead." So, judge. So.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions about that? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Gay?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. And do we have staff updates?
I just wanted to get the board's direction. I reached out to ADC Concrete for curbs and said they're willing to do it again, stay under our $25,000. But would it be the board's desire again to try to get 3 quotes? I did that last year. It took an additional 2 months to get those in and track them down. Only ended up getting 1 more, and it was almost $60,000 versus $25,000. I reached out to several of the people I reached out to said they are now attaching it to the road paving because they can't get people to do the curbs. So I just want to know if it was ADC did it in the last 8 years. If you want me to go ahead and try to pursue and take the time to get an additional 2 quotes, or if you guys would be okay moving ahead with ADC.
Can we get around?
Is it over 50?
Under 25.
Under 25.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're good.
Then we're no problem.
I don't see the need to waste the time.
We've got 2 months of time to work
Good
more
with
than
that, Steve?
frustration.
It's not that big a project.
I think that's part of the problem as well. Our projects are smaller, and they're filling work, and they gotta move the equipment and everything. So I just wanted to make sure before I did any further work on it. So thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, anything else under staff updates? Or nothing is,
One more thing.
Oh, yes, sir.
The paving crew will be moving up off of Waynesboro Way tomorrow. So they'll be up north tomorrow starting and up off of Waynesboro Way. Mr. Jones contacts me every time he gets an update, called today, said they'll be in there tomorrow, so I'll keep you updated as I get information.
So, a little sooner than last year, right? Last year, we were late.
Jurgensen's usually on it fairly quick and fairly early, fairly fast, so it's nice when Jurgensen gets the bid.
Okay, good. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yea.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yea.
Mr. Wade?